Today's topic is one that I'm really excited to chat with you about because in my past, this has been an issue. And I find that today's topic is an issue for a lot of the women who are clients in my coaching programs. And that has to do with really difficult holiday situations and how stressful they can be, how anxiety ridden they can be. And so I want to give you some tips to minimize or eliminate the stress. I'm going to give you even a strategy for how to set in place some boundaries that will help you to, again, minimize and reduce stress during these times. So here's the thing. Oftentimes, as women, holidays are not the joyous, fun-filled occasion for us that they are for everyone else. And here's why. I'm gonna put the blame back on us a little bit because we kind of do this to ourselves. I'll just put it that way, because we do take on responsibility for all the things, right? If you find yourself being in a position of being kind of resentful or dreading the holidays, this episode is definitely for you. So the first thing I'm going to say is, I do think that as women, we take on kind of the onus of responsibility for holidays. So like we make sure that all the groceries are in the house. Maybe we plan a holiday dinner and we invite people to our house, and then we have all the preparation work to do, right? Or if we're traveling to families, somewhere our family lives away from us, we're making all the travel plans. We're buying all the gifts for everyone. And so I remember being really disgruntled and stressed out about the fact that I felt like I had to buy for everybody. And it was my responsibility to make sure that, everything was bought for everybody. And I would get resentful and angry about that. And then I would be in a bad mood and on and on and on, right? It created a lot of stress and anxiety for me. Well, that was my fault because I took on the responsibility of purchasing everything. And I didn't say, okay, hey, let's split this up. You take this part of the list, I'll take this part of the list, and we'll both be responsible. No, I took it all on. And then I got kind of pissed off that I had all the work to do, right? Well, if you find yourself getting resentful like that, if you find yourself being stressed out about the upcoming dinner or celebration or travel plans, then you probably need to reevaluate how you handle those situations so that you can minimize the stress for yourself. And I'm going to give you some tips for that, okay? So one, I think setting a time limit in advance of an event is a perfect way to minimize your stress. And it's also a great way to set expectations. Here's what I mean by that. So, Roger and I are kind of the Brady Bunch family, right? We both had kids from previous marriages. Our kids were very, very young when we got together. And in that kind of a situation, you have other people, that exes and other family members that you need to deal with around the holidays because your kids are little, right? And so in advance of going to any kind of an event where there would be ex-in-laws of either of ours, we would talk about it in advance and we would say, okay, so the expectation is we're going to go and stay for 1 hour or 90 minutes or whatever. But we knew in advance what our and we agreed to the expectation in advance. So no one was surprised or got upset or was disappointed when that happened. And in the same way, I think we can do that around holiday celebrations. Whether you have a Brady Bunch family or not, you can talk to your partner and set the expectation that, okay, we're going to go to your, Aunt Sally's, but can we agree that we're going to leave after an hour and a half? And then everybody is clear on what we're doing and how long we're staying. So you go, you play nice, and then you leave at the agreed upon time. That can avoid a lot of tension and it can minimize your stress because going in that you only have to deal with Aunt Sally or whoever is there for that 90 minutes and then you're out, right? So setting those expectations by creating an agreed upon time limit before events is a perfect way to do it. And this doesn't have to be all about family either. There are times when we have had events for work, for example, around holiday time. And there are things that, the other person doesn't particularly want to go and socialize with all your work friends at the work Christmas party, right? And so having an agreed upon time that you're going to leave can make that a lot less stressful for both you and the other person, right? Second thing I would say is, no is a complete sentence, and you can say it. You don't have to go to everything you're invited to. You don't have to do everything that you're asked to do. And it's on you to say no. And if you're saying yes out of guilt, or you're saying yes out of some like perceived obligatory reason, then that's on you too. And you need to buck up and practice saying no, because you have a right to do that. And so saying yes to everything really does create a lot of extra work for you. It creates a lot of anxiety and stress oftentimes. And so just say no to some things. Think about your priorities, and you may not want to go to the fifth party invitation that you get for different people that you work with. Just say no, and you don't have to explain yourself. A third tip that I would give you, and this one I know it's not as easy done as it is to say, but it really is your responsibility to remove yourself from discussions that make you uncomfortable. And so I would say avoid controversial or uncomfortable topics when they come up. You can excuse yourself from the table. You can go into another room and talk with other people. But if you know that Uncle Billy Bob always brings up politics, and the majority of the people, or any of the people who are going to be loudly voicing their perspectives, are people you're not going to agree with, there's no reason to get involved in that conversation. There's no reason for you to be upset by it, stressed out by it. You're not going to change people's minds at Thanksgiving dinner about their choice of candidate to endorse. So just remove yourself from the discussion. Go talk to somebody else. And I know, again, it's oftentimes really difficult when you're in the thick of it. And so in advance of going to the event, think about who's going to be there and what topics come up repeatedly that make you uncomfortable or are controversial and that you don't want to get involved in. And in advance of going, make up your mind that you are not going to engage in those conversations. The third one has to do with, I would say, it's a little bit about setting expectations, but it also, I think it has more to do with setting boundaries. And this is something that oftentimes we as women, I think, have difficulty setting healthy boundaries. And then once we set them, sometimes we have difficulty holding them. And so I would say it is our responsibility, and a huge tip that I would give you is to express those boundaries in a very healthy way so that the people that you're concerned about crossing them know what to expect in advance. So let's say that you go to a holiday dinner with, let's say it's your family. You go to a holiday dinner, you know that your extended family is always there, and maybe there's, Aunt Sue who always comments about your weight or the way that you dress or your choices around your children, whatever it may be. Practice in advance holding that boundary, like vocally holding that boundary. And even better, set the expectation for that boundary in advance of going. And so if you have the kind of relationship that you'll talk to Aunt Sue before you go to the party, then you can say to her, I really value spending time with you, but I need for you not to bring up the decisions that I've made around my adult children's lives and how I'm involved with them. And I need for you not to bring that up at the holiday dinner because that's just a topic I don't want to engage in conversation with you about. So that kind of stating a boundary in advance by telling someone that you really value being around them or whatever it is that you value about them, that you need for them to do something or not do something, and then telling them to please take this other action is a great way for you to, in a very healthy manner, express a boundary that you have. And if you're not in a position to do that in advance, you can always do it while you're there, right? So you can get to the event and you can talk to Aunt Sue, kind of take her aside and just say, I really value this time with you, and go through the exact same statement of boundary setting. This is a therapy type of strategy. Often therapists teach this to their clients in advance of different kinds of stressful situations so that their clients can, or their patients can, set a boundary. And I find it very, very helpful to share this with clients that I've worked with so that they can have a way to really, in a positive way, set a boundary. Now, here's the thing. Not all of our family and friends are going to respect those boundaries. They're just not. And you may be listening to this and go, okay, well, if I say that to my grandfather, that I value and love him and love spending time with him, and that I need for him, to do X, Y, and Z, or not to do X, Y, and Z, and please to take this other action, he's not going to do it. He's set in his ways. He's just not going to. He's always done it. Then, okay, you can't control grandpa, but you can control yourself. And if you, by all right that you have expressed to him in that very diplomatic, respectful way that you need for him to hold this boundary, and he doesn't, then it's on you to remove yourself from the situation. It doesn't have to be a scene. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You can just remove yourself either from the room or the entire event and go home. Say your goodbyes and leave. Because ultimately what it comes down to is this. Everything is your fault. I taught this to my mother, as a matter of fact, this week. And we were laughing about it, but it's true. Everything is your fault. If you allow people, or if people are treating you a certain way, you're allowing it. Ultimately, that's your fault. If something is happening in your life that you don't like, you're allowing it. And ultimately, that is your fault. And this was something that was really, really difficult for me to wrap my head around for years. And you're not ultimately responsible for other people, but you are responsible when that flips over into how it affects you, right? And so what they're doing, you can't take responsibility for, but the fact that you're allowing yourself to continue to be in the situation is definitely your fault. So ultimately, it's all your fault, right? That was something I had to look in the mirror and say, like, it is really all your fault. Like, remove yourself from this situation. And I did some big removing when that finally soaked in on a really cellular level. I did some really big removing and it was freeing. And so I would propose to you that if you can really take that in and accept it and remove yourself from those situations or remove people from your lives, then you've crossed over into such a freedom that there's nothing like it. And you'll absolutely love how it feels. It is like a huge release. So I hope this was helpful for you today. I think, as we move into the holidays, I'm thinking more and more and sharing more and more with the women who are our clients in our MRS program. I'm sharing more with them on strategies around things like boundaries, things like stress, things like how to eat at all of these celebrations. And it just has me really thinking more about how many of us spend year after year dreading the holidays because we want to make it nice for everybody else, but it creates such a stressful situation for us. And it really doesn't have to be that way. You can put some things in place, some strategies in place, like I shared with you today, and you can really change the entire complexion and the entire feeling of this holiday season for yourself. And you deserve that. So I hope that you will use something from today. I hope it was useful and you'll implement it. And I'll meet you right back here next time.